All right, everybody, welcome back to Surviving Politics-ish. Grab a seat, grab a drink, and let's learn about politics together. Today, we aren't talking about policy too much. We've done plenty of that. Today, I want to do a little bit of a vibe check, specifically the very weird, very thirsty vibe coming out of the White House. And honestly, when I look back on certain rallies, this thirst has been going on for quite a while. So we're here, and the time of this recording is May of 2026, and I feel like I'm living in a social experiment that has gone completely off the rails. President Trump has always been obsessed with being like the strong alpha male. He wants to be the guy that towers over everyone else. He talks about his height, his weight, and his strength, which will fact check those. But lately, that obsession has taken a turn into, well, maybe unexplored territory. There's things that happens in politics where a leader tries so hard to look masculine, and they end up circling back around into something that looks a lot like fan fiction. We've seen it in the way that he handled equipment on stage and those late night true social rants that read like the guys who's one glass of wine away from a major life confession. And look, I'm bringing this up because even though some of these clips are a few months or even a year old at this point, we cannot just let them fade into the background. In the 24-hour news cycle, a weird moment today is forgotten by tomorrow. But these aren't just weird moments. They're receipts. They show the cracks in the mask. They show a man who's obsessed with the male form in a way that his traditional value base isn't prepared to handle. So tonight, we're looking at the microphones, the legendary golfers, and the handsome men in tactical gear. We're asking the question, is the president actually the quote-unquote strong man his followers think he is? Or is he just a guy who really enjoys the view? Okay, so let's start with a rally that happened quite a while ago. He's sitting there, the crowd is cheering, the microphone starts acting up. It's slipping or the stand is loose, something like that. Whether it's technical issues, none of that really matters. What does matter is how he handled it. And now, normally, if a microphone breaks, you wave a tech over and you joke about the equipment. But Donald grabbed the microphone and he started performing a sequence of movements that represented giving the microphone a blowjob. We'll just say it. And there was a lot of enthusiasm behind it. There were families in the front row, and here's the leader of the free world on a jumbo screen, basically auditioning for a role in a movie that would never be seen in a regular theater. But here's the fascinating part, and it's the reaction. If any Democrat did that, if Joe Biden had done that, or if a liberal senator did that, Fox News would have a 24-hour telethon and a complete come undone of the moral decay of America. They'd be calling for an exorcism. But with Trump, the MAGA influencers on Twitter were calling it alpha energy. Look at him. He's so masculine. He's just being one of the guys. But is he though? Because to me, it looked like a SunDown moment. It looked like a guy who forgot he was in an arena in Ohio and thought he was back at a stag party with Bubba and the boys in 1985. It was very cringy, but he wants to be seen as this force to be reckoned with. But it's coming off very bizarre. If anyone else did this, we'd be talking about a cognitive decline or a wellness check. With him, it's just another fucking Tuesday. If the microphone thing was one off, maybe we could let it slide. But then he went to Pennsylvania. Now, he went to the birthplace of the legendary Arnold Palmer. It should have been a slam dunk speech about American greatness, sportsmanship, and the economy. But instead, we got 12 minutes of Palmer's anatomy. He stood at a podium and started reminiscing about Arnold in the locker room. The president of the United States here, I'm quoting, when he took showers with other pros, they came out there and said, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable." Dude, you're at a rally giving us a play-by-play of a golfer's physique from 40 years ago. It's not just weird, it's a fixation. He is so obsessed with the idea of alpha physical dominance that he can't help himself. He's fascinated by the legendary status of other men's bodies. It's like he's writing his own erotic fan fiction from the presidential podium. And again, the base just slaps onto it. They think it's locker room talk. It shows a man who is deeply focused on a very specific kind of male imagery. He's obsessed with who is handsome, who is big, and who is unbelievable in the shower. At what point do we stop calling this alpha energy and start calling it what it is? A man who is lost in the fantasy of a 1980s masculinity, unable to stop himself from spilling the tea on his own internal obsessions. If the Arnold Palmer stuff didn't convince you that maybe there's something deeper in his closet, closet, let's look at the White House Correspondents Dinner. Not even 24 hours after this alleged attempted assassination, he was in an interview talking about the theatrics and was talking about how handsome and safe he felt of the Secret Service and the National Guard. He didn't talk about their response times. He didn't talk about their tactical training or their service records. He talked about how they looked. He described them as young, handsome men in the most beautiful tactic gear he has ever seen. And then he said, I stood behind the curtain and I watched them. Let that sink in. The President of the United States hiding behind a heavy velvet curtain, just watching these handsome guards do their thing. He's fixated on the broad shoulders and the perfect uniforms. Is this alpha? Is this what we were promised? Because usually the alpha is the one out front, not the one peeking through the curtains and swooning over the tactical team. The hypocrisy is staggering to me. This is a movement that spends 90% of its time attacking the LGBTQIA community, calling them woke or degenerate, while their leader is at the podium giving us a physical appearance description of every man in the room. This is staged masculinity. He's doing the tough talk, but the moment he goes off script, he sounds like he's at a casting call for the 90s boy band. To me, it's that sunset hour energy where the filters just stop working and the reality of his own interests start bleeding through the strongman mask. Which brings us to the SunDown closet. Look, we've all seen the late night truth social posts. It's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and the rants aren't just about fake news anymore. They're rambling. They're poetic in a very weird way, and they're increasingly focused on the physical presence of a man. I'm genuinely starting to wonder if one of these nights the brain fog is going to hit just right and he's going to have a major breakthrough post, a coming out movement of ages. Could you imagine the absolute meltdown the masculine Republican base would have? They spent decades building their entire identity around the guy as their ultimate straight talker, only for him to potentially admit he's been a fan of the handsome guards along the way. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, when you strip away the rallies, the handsome guards, and the microphone blowjobs, what are you left with? Honestly, you're left with what I call little bitch energy. He talks big. He acts like he's the strongest man in the room, but he's a man who's behind curtains to watch other men protect him. He's a man who fixates on the anatomy of golfers over 40 years ago because he's insecure of his own place in the world. He uses our tax dollars to build a gold-paleted life while pretending to be one of the guys. We're seeing a man who is obsessed with the very things he claims to stand against. Look, me personally, I'm tired of the stage theater. I'm tired of the ballroom talk. I'm tired of seeing where our tax dollars are going when I want us to focus on and talk about the gas prices, the grocery prices, the rent prices, and healthcare, and not what the Secret Service men look like.